Hyun-woo sat alone in the communications tower. His fingers moved across the control panel, checking frequencies that no longer mattered. Outside the reinforced windows, the sky burned orange. It had been orange for 73 days now. Before the asteroid hit, the sky had been purple. Beautiful purple. Like the flowers that grew in his mother's garden. Those flowers were dead now. Everything was dead or dying. The tower shook. Hyun-woo gripped his chair and waited for it to pass. Earthquakes came every few hours now. The planet was tearing itself apart from the inside. The asteroid had cracked something deep in the core. Scientists said Kethis Prime had maybe 4 months left. Maybe less. Hyun-woo looked at his screen. 47 distress signals sent. 0 responses received. He was not surprised anymore. 0. Da-eun had explained it to him weeks ago, before she stopped coming to the tower every day. The galaxy did not care about dying civilizations. There were too many of them. Resources were limited. Ships were expensive. Why waste either on people who were already as good as dead? The door opened behind him. Hyun-woo turned, surprised. Da-eun stood there. Her breathing mask fogged from the climb up the stairs. The elevators had stopped working last week. "I thought you were at the southern shelter," Hyun-woo said. Da-eun pulled off her mask. Her face looked tired. Everyone looked tired these days. "I was. But Taeyang sent me. He wants to know if we should shut down the tower. Save the power for the shelters." Hyun-woo looked at his equipment. Banks of machines that had run continuously for 200 years. His grandfather had worked in this tower. His grandmother, too. The communications array of Kethis Prime had never gone silent. Not once in all of recorded history. 47 signals, Hyun-woo said quietly. No one answered. No. Da eun agred. She sat down in the chair next to him. No one will answer. That is how the galaxy works. The strong survive. The weak die. We were strong for 200,000 years. Now, we are weak. Hyun-woo felt anger rise in his chest. We built cities on 17 moons. We mapped 3 entire spiral arms. We gave the Theln species the mathematics for stable wormholes. We were never weak. Were, Da-eun said gently. Past tense. Now we are the civilization that got hit by an asteroid we should have seen coming. Now we are the ones begging for help. The galaxy has moved on, Hyun-woo. They always do. The tower shook again. This earthquake lasted longer. Dust fell from the ceiling. When it stopped, Hyun-woo checked his instruments. 3 more seismic stations had gone offline. Only 14 left on the whole planet. How many people left? Hyun-woo asked. 2.3 million in the shelters. Maybe another 100,000 scattered in isolated zones. Down from 94 million before the impact. 94 million. Hyun-woo remembered the cities full of people. The markets. The schools. His sister had taught at a school. She died in the first month when the atmospheric processors failed in the eastern continent. His parents went a week later. Hyun-woo had stopped counting who he lost after that. Taeyang wants an answer about the tower. Da-eun said. Hyun-woo looked at his equipment. All this power. All this energy. It could keep a shelter running for another month. Feed another 1,000 people. Give them a few more weeks of life before the end came. But something in him refused to accept it. The communications array had never gone silent. It was the last piece of Velthron's civilization that still worked properly. Everything else was broken or breaking. But here, in this tower, he could still touch the stars. Let me send one more message, Hyun-woo said. Then I will shut it down, I promise. Da-eun studied his face. Then, she nodded. One more. Make it count. She left him alone. Hyun-woo listened to her footsteps fade down the stairwell. Then, he turned to his console. He pulled up the template for a standard distress signal. Request for aid. List of needed resources. Coordinates. population count, all the formal language that no one cared about. He deleted it all. Instead, Hyunwoo typed something different. Something simple. He wrote about Kethis Prime before the asteroid. The purple skies. The singing towers in the capital that made music when the wind blew. The old libraries that held 200,000 years of history. His mother's garden. His sister's classroom. He wrote that they had been here. That they had built things, and loved people, and created beauty. He wrote that they were dying now. And no one was coming to help. And that was fine. The galaxy did not owe them anything. But he wanted someone to know they had existed. Just one person. One species. Somewhere out in all those stars. We were here, he typed. Remember us. Hyunwoo sent the message. He watched it transmit on all frequencies, spreading out into space at the speed of light. It would travel for years. Centuries. Maybe it would reach someone someday. Maybe not. It did not matter anymore. He started shutting down the systems. One by one, the machines went dark. 200 years of continuous operation, ending with the press of a button. Hyunwoo felt tears on his face, but he did not wipe them away. The console beeped. Hyunwoo froze. That was the incoming message alert. He stared at the screen. It had to be a malfunction. Equipment failure. The old machines finally breaking down. The beep came again. Hyunwoo's hands shook as he pulled up the communications panel. There, in the log, was an incoming transmission. Active. Live. Someone was responding. He opened the channel. Static filled the tower. Then, through the noise, words came. They were translated poorly. The syntax all wrong, but unmistakable. Kethis Prime. We received your message. We are coming. Repeat. We are coming. Hold on. Hyunwoo could not breathe. He checked the source signature. The species identifier came back as unknown. The name attached was strange. Foreign. Human. He had never heard of them. Who are you? Hyunwoo transmitted back. Why are you coming? The response took 3 minutes. We are human. We heard you. We are not far. 11 days. Can you hold for 11 days? 11 days. That was impossible. Kethis Prime was in the outer rim. The nearest major civilization was 40 days away, at standard FTL speeds. No one could reach them in 11 days. That is impossible, Hyunwoo sent. The distance is too far. Another pause. Then, we will make it possible. Tell your people to hold on. Help is coming. We promise. The transmission ended. Hyunwoo sat in the silent tower, staring at his screen. His heart pounded in his chest. He did not know if he should laugh, or cry, or scream. Someone had answered. Someone was coming. He ran for the stairs. He had to tell Da-eun. He had to tell Taeyang. He had to tell everyone. The Velthrons were not alone anymore. High above Kethis Prime, in the dark between stars, a fleet of ships pushed their engines past every safety limit. They burned bright in the darkness, racing toward a world they had never seen, to save people they had never met. The humans were coming. The fleet dropped out of FTL space above Kethis Prime on day 11. Exactly as promised. G1 stood on the bridge of the Indomitable Hope and stared at the planet below. Even from orbit, she could see it was dying. The atmosphere swirled with toxic orange clouds. Massive storm systems covered half the surface. Lightning flashed continuously along the equator. Scan complete, her navigator said. Atmospheric toxicity at 67%. Seismic activity off the charts. Core destabilization confirmed. Captain, this planet has maybe 3 months left. Then, we better work fast, G1 said. Get me a channel to the Velthron government. Behind the Indomitable Hope, 43 other ships hung in space. Military vessels, cargo haulers, private yachts. A mining ship still covered in asteroid dust. Even the generation ship New Tomorrow had changed course. adding its massive bulk to the rescue fleet. They had come from 18 different human colonies. When word spread that someone needed help, they had simply come. No government ordered it. No council approved it. They just came. Sung-ho climbed up from the engineering deck, grease on his hands. "Captain, I need to talk to you about the engines." "How bad?" "We pushed them 20% past redline for 11 days straight. 3 of the primary cores are cracked. We will need a full rebuild when we get home." Ji-won nodded. "Can they handle evacuation operations?" "For now. But if we push them much more, they will fail completely. Then we better work fast," Ji-won repeated. It was becoming her motto. The communications officer looked up. "Captain, I have Velthron Planetary Command. Governor Tae-yang wants to speak with you." The view screen changed. A Velthron appeared. They were tall, with skin that shifted between blue and gray. 4 arms. Large eyes adapted for low light. Tae-yang looked exhausted. "Human vessel Indomitable Hope," Tae-yang said. "I am Governor Tae-yang of Cathis Prime. You came. We said we would," Ji-won replied. "How many people need evacuation?" 2.3 million in the shelters, maybe more scattered across the planet. "But Captain, I must be honest with you. Our atmosphere is deadly to most species. The seismic activity makes landing extremely dangerous. We have lost contact with 17 shelters in the past week. This will not be an easy rescue." Quote, 2M. Quote, Ji-won smiled. It was not a happy smile. "Governor, we just spent 11 days running our engines hot enough to melt bulkheads. Easy was never part of the plan. Send us the coordinates for every shelter. We will get your people out." Over the next hour, the human fleet organized itself with practiced efficiency. Military ships would provide landing support and atmospheric cover. Cargo vessels would transport refugees. Medical ships would handle the injured. Everyone had a job. Everyone knew what to do. Bo Ram, the chief medical officer, called up to the bridge. "Captain, I need clearance to take medical teams down to the surface. The atmosphere will kill you in minutes without protection," Ji-won said. "I know. We brought protection. But, I am telling you now, we will lose people. The conditions down there are brutal. Do what you can, Doctor. Just try to come back alive." "No promises, Captain." The first landing began 2 hours after arrival. Sung-ho had jury-rigged atmospheric processors from 6 different ship types. They did not match. They used incompatible power sources. By every engineering standard, they should not work. They worked anyway. Sung-ho watched from the engineering bay as his teams installed the processors on the landing craft. "If this works, I am writing a paper about it," he muttered. "If it does not work, I will die confused." The first landing craft touched down near Shelter 73. The Velthrons had built their shelters deep underground, trying to escape the toxic atmosphere and constant earthquakes. The landing team had to dig through collapsed tunnels to reach them. Bo Ram led her medical team through the ruins. She wore a full environmental suit, breathing recycled air. The suit's readouts showed the external atmosphere was 70% toxic. 3 minutes of exposure would cause permanent lung damage. 5 minutes would be fatal. They found the shelter entrance buried under rubble. Bo Ram's team worked with hand tools, moving rocks and twisted metal. Every few minutes, the ground would shake with another earthquake. They kept working. Inside the shelter, they found 3,000 Velthrons. Sick, starving, terrified. Many did not believe the humans were real. They thought they were hallucinating from toxic gas exposure. "We are real," Bo Ram told them through her suit's translator. "We are here to take you home. Well, to our home. Until we can find you a better home. Just hold on a little longer." The evacuation began. Velthrons moved through tunnels to waiting landing craft. Children cried. Adults stumbled on weak legs. The medical teams carried those who could not walk. Above, in orbit, G1 coordinated the fleet. Craft went down full of supplies. Came back up full of refugees. The logistics were a nightmare. Different species needed different environments, different food, different medical care. Sung Ho's team worked around the clock, modifying cargo holds to support Velthron biology. They built life support systems from spare parts and hope. Half of it should not work. Most of it violated safety regulations. It worked anyway. On day 3, disaster struck. Landing Craft 17 was bringing up refugees from Shelter 91 when a major earthquake hit. The craft lost power. It started to fall. G1 watched from the bridge, helpless. Can anyone reach them? Negative, Captain. They are too far from any other ships. The craft fell. 400 Velthrons and 20 human crew. G1 felt her heart stop. Then the Steadfast, a human destroyer, dove into the atmosphere. Its captain, a woman named He-Jin, pushed her engines to maximum. The destroyer was not built for atmospheric flight. Its shields were not designed for that kind of stress. He-Jin did not care. The Steadfast caught Landing Craft 17, locked on with tractor beams, started pulling it back up toward orbit. But the strain was too much. The destroyer's shields failed. Its engines overheated. Steadfast, abort, G1 shouted into the comm. You are tearing your ship apart. Copy that, indomitable hope, He-Jin replied. Her voice was calm. But I have a hold full of people who are counting on us. Continuing rescue operation. The Steadfast made it to orbit. Landing Craft 17 released. Safe. Then the destroyer's engines exploded. The Steadfast broke apart. Emergency pods launched. Most made it. He-Jin did not. She stayed at her post, making sure her crew evacuated. The last anyone heard from her was over the comm. 420 lives saved. Worth it. 412 human crew died on the Steadfast. G1 ordered their names recorded. Every single one. She would make sure the galaxy knew what they had done. The evacuation continued, shelter by shelter, day by day. The human fleet worked without stopping. Crews went 30 hours without sleep. Ships ran on backup power. Medical supplies ran low. They kept going. Da-Un, the Velthron scientist, joined the human command crew on day 5. She watched them work with something like wonder. I do not understand you, she told G1. Your economy will be destroyed by this. You have lost ships, lost lives. The galactic community will not reimburse you. There is no profit here. No strategic advantage. Why are you doing this? Epson, G1 looked at her. Because you called for help. What else matters? But we are strangers. You did not even know our species existed until 11 days ago. Does that matter? You were calling for help. We heard you. So we came. That is what you do when someone needs help. You help them. Da-Un was quiet for a long time. Then she said, The galaxy does not work that way. Maybe it should, G1 replied. On day 8, 3 ships arrived from other species. They were not rescue ships. They were observers. The Theln Confederation sent a monitor vessel. The Corvin Union sent a science ship. The Dralith sent a diplomatic cruiser. They hung back in high orbit and watched. They did not offer to help. Young Sik, the human ambassador, was with the fleet. He hailed the observer ships. Are you here to assist with the rescue operation? The Theln observer, Kyungmi, responded. We are here to observe. The Galactic Council wants documentation of this event. Documentation? People are dying down there. Yes, that is unfortunate. But galactic policy is clear. Interference in planetary disasters requires council approval. You humans do not have that approval. Young Sik felt anger burn in his chest. We did not ask for approval. We asked if you wanted to help save lives. That is not how the galaxy works, Ambassador. Then maybe the galaxy is broken, Young Sik said, and cut the channel. The human fleet kept working. By day 10, They had evacuated 1.8 million Velthrons. The planet was tearing itself apart faster now. Whole continents were sinking into the unstable mantle. The time was running out. On day 11, exactly 22 days after the first distress signal, the last shuttle lifted off from Kethis Prime. It carried Hyun-woo, Da-eun, and Governor Tae-yang, the last 3 Velthrons to leave their homeworld. From orbit, they watched their planet die. The surface fractured. Lava flowed. The atmosphere burned. Tae-yang wept. So did Hyun-woo. So did every Velthron on every human ship. And so did many of the humans. Ji-won stood on her bridge and watched Kethis Prime break apart. 200,000 years of history. Gone. But 2.1 million people saved. Alive. Set course for human space, she ordered. Let us take our new friends home. The fleet turned away from the dying world. Behind them, the observer ships remained, recording everything. The galaxy was watching now, and what it saw would change everything. The Galactic Council chamber was designed to impress. It hung in the void between 3 stars, a station the size of a moon. Representatives from 214 species gathered in the central hall. Each had their own section, customized for their specific environmental needs. The chamber could hold 50,000 beings. Today, it was full. Young-sik walked to the human delegation platform. He was not prepared for this. He was a junior ambassador. His job was usually to file reports and attend minor trade meetings. Now he stood before the most powerful beings in the galaxy, and they were all staring at him. The reason was simple. In 3 weeks, humanity had done something the galaxy did not understand. The Theln observer, Kyung-mi, stood to present her report. She was a thin creature, with silver skin and too many joints in her arms. Her voice was cold and analytical. The human rescue operation on Kethis Prime has been documented, she said. The data is clear. The humans deployed 44 vessels. They evacuated 2.1 million Velthrons. They lost 8 ships and 1,847 crew members. The operation cost them approximately 17% of their total deep space fleet capacity. A murmur went through the chamber. 17% was catastrophic for a young species like humanity, Kyung-mi continued. The humans received no council approval, no insurance coverage, no promise of reimbursement. They had no prior relationship with the Velthron species, no trade agreements, no mutual defense treaties, no strategic interest in the region. Then why did they do it? Asked a representative from the Corvan Union. He was a massive creature, built like a boulder with arms. That is what we are trying to understand, Kyung-mi said. The humans claim they did it because the Velthrons asked for help. That is their only stated motivation. The Corvan representative laughed. It sounded like rocks grinding together. No one spends that many resources just because someone asked. There must be another reason. Hidden interests. Political manipulation. Resource claims. Young-sik felt his jaw tighten. He stood up. May I speak? The council chair, an ancient being from a species so old no one remembered their original name, gestured for him to proceed. There is no hidden reason, Young-sik said. We helped. Because they needed help, that is all. That is not how the galaxy works, the Corvan said. Then maybe the galaxy is broken. Silence filled the chamber. No one spoke to the council that way. Young-sik knew he had probably just destroyed his career. He did not care. On 10. Rude. Reason stan. The human is correct, said a new voice. Everyone turned. The speaker was a Draelith diplomat named Inho. The Draelith were traders. Merchants. They understood value and cost better than anyone. Inho continued. I have studied the human economy. They are now in serious debt. Their shipyards are running at maximum capacity to replace lost vessels. Several colonies are facing food shortages because they redirected supplies to the Velthron refugees. By every economic measure, They have damaged themselves severely. Then they are fools, the Corvan said. Or, Inho replied, they are operating under a different value system than we understand. I propose we study this further. The humans have done something unprecedented. We should learn why. The council debated for hours. Young Six sat in the human section and watched. Most species were confused. Some were suspicious. A few were angry that humans had broken the unwritten rules of galactic society. But some were interested. Far from the council chamber, in a small apartment on human colony Verdant Shore, one chick drew pictures. He was 7 years old. Velthron years, which were shorter than human years. But still, 7 was young in any language. He sat at a table with crayons that were too big for his hands. Humans and Velthrons had different numbers of fingers, but one chick made it work. He drew the human who had carried him from the shelter. Her name was Bo-Ram. She had worn a big suit that made her look like a robot. But her voice through the speaker had been kind. She told him stories during the long trip to the ship. Stories about Earth, about oceans and mountains. Things one chick had only seen in books. "What are you drawing?" asked Minsu. She was the colony coordinator. Her job was to help the Velthron refugees adjust to their new home. She had been working 20-hour days for 3 weeks. "The woman who saved me," one chick said. He held up his picture. It was crude, the way children's drawings always are. But Minsu could see Bo-Ram in the helmet of the rescue suit. "That is beautiful," Minsu said. "Can I put it on the wall with the others?" One chick nodded. Minsu took the picture and added it to the growing collection. The community center walls were covered now. Hundreds of drawings. Velthron children drawing the humans who saved them. Outside the center, the colony struggled. Verdant Shore was a farming colony. 12,000 humans lived there, growing food for the inner worlds. Now, they had 15,000 Velthron refugees. The housing was overcrowded. The food supplies were strained. The water recycling systems ran constantly. Some humans complained. They had worked hard to build this colony. Now, they were being asked to share it with strangers, aliens who did not speak their language, did not know their customs, needed different food. But most humans just helped. They shared their homes. They learned to cook Velthron food. They helped Velthron children learn human languages. Because that was what you did. Someone needed help. You helped them. On another human world, Jae-hyun sat in a hospital bed and watched the news. His freighter, the Lucky Fortune, had been damaged during the rescue. Debris from a collapsing shelter had torn through the cargo hold. Jae-hyun had kept the ship flying long enough to get his passengers to safety. Then the hull had breached. His crew had evacuated in escape pods. Jae-hyun had been the last one off. He had broken 3 ribs and his left leg. The doctors said he was lucky to be alive. The Lucky Fortune was not lucky. The ship was a total loss. Jae-hyun had owned it for 12 years. It was his home, his business, his life. Now it was debris orbiting a dead planet. Was it worth it? A reporter asked through the video link. The interview was being broadcast across human space, across the galaxy. Jae-hyun looked at the camera. "I saved 732 people. 732 lives that would have ended on Kethis Prime. So yes, it was worth it. I would do it again. Even though you lost everything, I can get another ship. Those people could not get another life." The interview spread across the galactic network. Other species watched it. Some with confusion, some with contempt, but some with something else. Something that looked like shame. On the Theln homeworld, Kyungmi watched the interview 3 times. She was an observer. Her job was to record data, not to feel things. But she felt something now. Something uncomfortable. She pulled up the files on the Kethis Prime evacuation. Read the reports. Studied the footage. The humans had not hesitated. When the first distress signal came, they had moved immediately. No committees. No cost-benefit analysis. Just action. The Theln had received the same distress signal. They had filed it away, marked it as a non-priority. Let it sit in a database while they debated whether intervention was cost-effective. While they debated, the humans had acted. Kyung-mi wrote a report. Not for the council. For herself. She titled it, The Human Question. In it, she analyzed what the humans had done. The cost. The risk. The complete lack of strategic benefit. Her conclusion was simple. The humans helped because they believe helping is its own justification. This represents a fundamental difference in values that the galaxy must account for. She sent the report to 3 colleagues. Within a week, it had spread through the scientific community. Within 2 weeks, it was being discussed in universities across the galaxy. The debate began. Were the humans naive? Irrational? Operating under some hidden agenda? Or were they demonstrating a type of civilization that the galaxy had forgotten could exist? Back on the council station, something unexpected happened. 3 species submitted a motion. A proposal for new galactic policy. It called for the creation of rapid response protocols for disaster relief. Volunteer crews, shared resources. The language was careful, political. But the core idea was simple. If someone called for help, someone should answer. The motion was called the Kethis Proposal. It did not pass. Not immediately. Too many species were uncomfortable with the idea. Uncomfortable with the precedent. Uncomfortable with what it might cost them. But it did not die either. It stayed on the council agenda. A seed. Planted. Young-Sik returned to human space. He was exhausted. The council had questioned him for days, demanded explanations, asked for justifications. He had given them the only answer he had, the only answer that mattered. We helped because they needed help. It was not an answer the galaxy understood. On Verdant Shore, one sheik finished another drawing. This one showed his new school. Human and Velthron children learning together. In the corner, he drew the flag of Kethis Prime next to the flag of Earth. 2 worlds. 2 species. 1 community. Min-Su hung the drawing on the wall with all the others. She stepped back and looked at the collection. Hundreds of pictures. Hundreds of stories. Hundreds of lives saved. The galaxy did not understand what humanity had done. But these children did. They understood perfectly. Someone had been in trouble. Someone had helped. That was all the explanation needed. High above, on the council station, the observer ships continued filing their reports. They analyzed. They debated. They tried to understand. But some things could not be explained in data and analysis. Some things could only be understood through action. The humans had acted, and the galaxy, slowly, was beginning to notice. The refugee stations hung in orbit above 3 human worlds. Massive temporary structures built in weeks. They were not elegant. They were not designed for long-term use. Seung-ho floated through the maintenance corridor of Station Alpha. He was tired. He had been tired for months. Ever since Kethis Prime. His hands still had burn scars from jury-rigging those atmospheric processors. His back ached from sleeping in his engineering bay instead of proper quarters. But the work was not done. The water recycling system in Section 7 is failing again, his assistant told him through the comm. 3rd time this week. I know, Seung-ho said. The system was not designed for this many people. We are running everything at 140% capacity. Can we fix it? Can we? Yes. Should we have to? No. But here we are. Seung-ho pulled himself to Section 7. The corridor was crowded. Velthron families lived in spaces meant for equipment storage. Children played in zero gravity, their laughter echoing off metal walls. An old Velthron woman nodded to Seung-ho as he passed. She was cooking something that smelled awful to his human nose but was probably delicious to hers. This was not a good way to live. But it was better than dying on a collapsing planet. The water recycler was leaking. Again, Seung-ho opened the access panel and stared at the mess of pipes and filters. This unit should have been replaced a month ago. But there were no replacement units. The human supply chain was stretched to breaking. He pulled out his tools and got to work. On Human World New Haven, Ji-won sat in a hearing room. She had been there for 6 hours. Government auditors questioned her about every decision made during the Kethis Prime rescue. Every resource used. Every protocol broken. Every regulation ignored. Captain Ji-won, the lead auditor said, you knowingly pushed your engines past safe operational limits. You exposed your crew to fatal atmospheric conditions. You committed 17% of the human deep space fleet without proper authorization. Do you understand the severity of these actions? Yes, Ji-won said. Her voice was flat, emotionless. She had no energy left for anger. And yet you did them anyway. Yes. Why? Because people were dying. What else mattered? The auditor made a note. Captain, the economic impact of your actions has been catastrophic. 3 colonies are facing food shortages. Ship construction has been delayed by 2 years. The human economy has contracted by 7%. Do you take responsibility for this? Ji-won looked at him. Really looked at him. I take responsibility for saving 2.1 million lives. If that breaks the economy, then the economy was not built right. The auditor was quiet. Then he said, you are dismissed, Captain. The board will review your case. Ji-won stood and left. Outside the hearing room, Young-sik waited for her. The ambassador looked as tired as she felt. How bad? He asked. They are deciding if they should court-martial me or give me a medal. Maybe both. The galaxy is watching, you know. Everything that happens here gets reported to the council. Good, Ji-won said. Let them watch. Let them see what we do to people who save lives. On the Velthron temporary settlement on World Haven's Rest, Sun-hee worked in a small building that used to be a warehouse. Now it was a library. Sort of. She had no books. No data cores. No artifacts. Everything from Kethis Prime was gone. But she had memory. Sun-hee was a historian. She was 93 years old, which was young for a Velthran. She had spent her life studying the history of her people. Now, her people had no home. No cities. No monuments. Just memories and the stories they told. So Sun-hee recorded stories. Every day, Velthrons came to her warehouse library. They told her about Kethis Prime, about the singing towers, about the old market where you could buy fruit from 17 different continents, about the university that had stood for 40,000 years, about small things, personal things, a favorite restaurant, a childhood home, a tree that grew outside someone's window. Sun-hee recorded everything. She worked with a human archivist named Hae-won. Together, they built a database. Not of great historical events, but of life. Of what it meant to be Velthron. Of everything they had lost. Why do you help us? Sun-hee asked Hae-won one day. You are not Velthron. These are not your memories. Hae-won looked up from her terminal. Because memories matter. But this costs you time. Resources. You could be doing other work. Another. This is the work, Hae-won said simply. Preserving who people are. That is always the work. On Kethis Prime, the planet was dying its final death. Governor Tae-young watched from a human observation ship. He had asked to be here. The humans thought it was a bad idea. Watching your homeworld die was not good for mental health. But Tae-yang insisted. He needed to see the end. The planet's core had become unstable. Completely unstable. The entire mantle was liquefying. Soon, Kethis Prime would tear itself apart. When it did, the debris field would create a navigational hazard for the entire sector. Tae-young had made a decision. A terrible decision. But necessary. You are sure about this? Asked the human ship captain. Yes, Tae-yang said. If we destroy the core stabilizers now, the planet will collapse inward instead of exploding outward. The debris will fall into the star. The shipping lanes will be safe, but that means killing the planet now. Not in a few months. Now. 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 The planet is already dead. This is just making sure it does not harm anyone else in its death. The captain nodded. She understood. Sometimes, you had to make hard choices, but before they could destroy the stabilizers, they needed to make sure no one was left. Sung-ho led a final survey team. They took a shuttle down to the surface. The conditions were lethal now. The atmosphere was 93% toxic. Earthquakes struck every few minutes. Rivers of lava flowed across what used to be continents. Any life signs? Sung-ho asked his scanner operator. Negative. Wait. Yes. Faint signal. Section 9 Alpha. Deep underground. They found a shelter. Collapsed. Buried under a kilometer of rubble. The life sign was weak. Maybe one person. Maybe two. We have to dig them out, Sung-ho said. Sir, the surface is collapsing. We have maybe 2 hours before this whole region drops into the mantle. Then we dig fast. They dug. The team worked with cutting lasers and excavation equipment. The ground shook constantly. Twice, lava flows came close enough that they had to move the shuttle. But they kept digging. They found him 3 meters down. A Velthron male. Unconscious, but alive. He had been trapped for weeks. Somehow, he survived. They carried him to the shuttle, lifted off as the ground collapsed behind them, made it to orbit with 5 minutes to spare. The Velthron woke up on the human ship. His name was Dong-ha. He was a teacher. He had stayed behind to help others evacuate. Got trapped when the shelter collapsed. Thought he was going to die alone in the dark. You came back, he whispered. I thought everyone left. We came back, Sung-ho confirmed. We always come back. Tae-yang met Dong-ha in the medical bay. The governor had tears in his eyes. You were supposed to be on the first evacuation ship. I know. But someone had to help the children. Do not apologize for saving children, Tae-yang said. He looked at Sung-ho. Thank you for not leaving him. We do not leave people behind, Sung-ho said. With everyone confirmed evacuated, the final operation began. Human demolition teams placed charges on the remaining core stabilizers. The math was complex. The timing had to be perfect. If they did it wrong, the explosion would scatter debris across half the sector. Sung-ho checked the calculations 17 times. He did not trust the computer. This was too important. Ready? Asked the demolition chief. Ready, Sung-ho confirmed. They pressed the trigger. Deep underground, explosives detonated. The core stabilizers shattered. The planet's molten core collapsed inward. Kethys Prime shuddered. The surface cracked. Then, slowly, the entire planet fell in on itself. The observers watched from orbit. Human ships, Velthron survivors, and the ever-present galactic observer vessels. Kethys Prime collapsed. In 3 hours, it went from a planet to a debris field. In 6 hours, the debris began falling into the system's star. In a week, there would be nothing left. No trace that a civilization had lived there for 200,000 years. Except for the 2.1 million Velthrons who lived on human worlds now. Tae-yang watched his homeworld die. He did not cry. He had no tears left. But he felt something. Relief. Maybe. The planet had been dying slowly. Now it was over. Clean. Final. Governor, Ji-won said. She had come to the observation ship for the final moments. I am sorry. Do not be sorry, Tae-yang said. What will you do now? Tae-yang thought about it. 2 million refugees. No home. No resources. Dependent on human charity. It should feel terrible. Humiliating. But it did not. We will rebuild, he said. Not Kethys Prime. That is gone. But we will rebuild ourselves. With your help. If you will let us. Of course, G1 said. You are not refugees anymore. You are neighbors. Back on the refugee stations, life continued. Crowded, difficult, imperfect, but alive. Children went to improvised schools. Adults learned new skills to contribute to human society. Old people told stories to anyone who would listen. Stories about a purple sky. And singing towers. One chick drew another picture. This one showed Kethis Prime. He drew it from memory. Purple sky. Beautiful. He had never seen it. The sky had already been orange when he was born. But his grandmother told him stories. He drew what she remembered. Min Su hung the picture on the wall. Beautiful, she said. It is gone now, one chick said. The humans told us. The planet is gone. The planet is gone. But not the memory. We will remember. Will the galaxy remember? Min Su looked at the child. 7 years old and already understanding loss. Yes, she said. I think the galaxy will remember. I think they have to. High above, on the observer ships, the crews filed their reports. The Kethis intervention was complete. The final cost had been tallied. 8 ships lost. 1,847 crew members dead. 17% of human fleet capacity. Economic damage that would take years to repair. And 2.1 million lives saved. The reports went to the Galactic Council, to universities, to governments, to anyone who would read them. The galaxy had watched. The galaxy had documented. And now, the galaxy had to decide what it meant. The humans had shown a different way. A way that cost them dearly. A way that broke their economy and strained their resources and killed their people. But it was a way that saved lives. And some species were starting to wonder if maybe, just maybe, that was the way things should be done. 50 years had passed. One chick stood on the observation deck of the diplomatic station and looked at the stars. He was 57 now. An adult. A father. A grandfather. And as of 3 months ago, the Velthron ambassador to the human Concordat. It was a long way from being a scared child in a collapsing shelter. He carried a small folder under his arm. Inside was a drawing. Faded now. The colors had dimmed over 5 decades. But he could still see it clearly. A human in a rescue suit. Boram. The woman who had carried him to safety. One chick had met her again, 10 years ago. She was old then. Retired. Living on a quiet colony world. They had talked for hours. She barely remembered him specifically. She had saved so many people that day. But she remembered Kethis Prime. She said she had dreams about it sometimes. About the orange sky and the collapsing shelters. About the children crying and the adults too weak to walk. She died 5 years ago. One chick went to the funeral. So did 700 other Velthrons. All people she had saved. Now one chick stood in a diplomatic station, waiting for a meeting that might change the galaxy. The door opened. HFY entered. She was human, 43 years old, and the leading historian on Velthron human integration. Her grandmother had been the archivist who helped Sun He preserve Velthron memories. HFY had continued that work. Ambassador, HFY said, the council is ready. Are they all here? 17 species. More than we expected. The Dralith. The Corvin Union. Even the Theln sent a delegation. One chick nodded. 50 years ago, those species had watched the Kethis intervention with cold analysis. Now they were here to talk about doing it themselves. The galaxy had changed. Slowly, gradually. But it had changed. The conference room was full. Representatives from 17 species. Each had come because of what happened 50 years ago. Each had studied the human response to Kethis Prime. Each had reached the same conclusion. The old way was not working. Kyung-mi of the Theln was there. She was ancient now. Her silver skin had dulled with age. But her mind was still sharp. She had spent 50 years studying the human question. She had written 12 books on the subject. "Ambassador Wonshik," she said as he entered. "It is good to see you." "Observer Kyungmi," Wonshik replied. "Though I hear you are not an observer anymore." "No. I am now the Theln Ambassador for Humanitarian Affairs. A new position, created because of what I observed 50 years ago." "Doc." They sat. The meeting began. Wonshik spoke first. 50 years ago, my people were dying. We sent out 47 distress calls. 46 went unanswered. The 47th was answered by a species we had never heard of. A young species. A poor species by galactic standards. But they came anyway. They saved 2.1 million of us. And in doing so, they changed how we think about civilization. He paused, looked around the room. I am here today because I believe the galaxy is ready to formalize what the humans showed us. That helping those in need is not just morally correct. It is strategically correct, economically correct, civilizationally correct. A Korvan diplomat, Sang-woo, spoke up. He was younger than the Korvan, who had questioned young Sik 50 years ago. That Korvan had died believing the humans were fools. Sang-woo believed differently. The Korvan Union has studied the long-term effects of the Kethis intervention, Sang-woo said. The humans lost 17% of their fleet capacity. They went into economic recession. By traditional analysis, they damaged themselves severely. He paused. But that analysis is incomplete. The humans gained something. They gained 2 million skilled Velthrons who integrated into their society. They gained technological exchanges, cultural exchanges. Most importantly, they gained trust. When humans make agreements now, other species believe them. Because we saw what they did when no one was watching, when there was no profit motive. They helped anyway. The Korvan Union proposes that we create similar trust networks across the galaxy, not through treaties, through action. The debate continued for hours. Some species were skeptical. Helping cost resources. It created dependencies. It was inefficient. But more species were interested. They had seen 50 years of human Velthron cooperation. They had seen the benefits. They wanted to replicate it. On the human vessel Unity, Captain Duyun prepared for departure. His ship was unique. Half the crew was human. Half was Velthron. It was a joint exploration vessel, the first of its kind. Duyun himself was human. His first officer, Eun-ji, was Velthron. They had trained together for 3 years, learning each other's languages, each other's customs, each other's ways of thinking. Final checks complete, Eun-ji reported. All systems operational. We are ready for departure. Then let us go explore, Duyun said. The Unity was heading beyond known space, into regions no one had mapped, looking for new worlds, new civilizations, maybe new people who needed help, because that was what you did now. You explored, you discovered, and if you found someone in trouble, you helped. In a classroom on New Velthara, the Velthron colony world, a teacher named Ji-hoon told students about history. Human students and Velthron students sat together. They were a new generation, born after the intervention. They had never known a time when humans and Velthrons were not partners. 50 years ago, Ji-hoon said, my great-grandfather sent out a distress signal. He did not expect anyone to answer. But someone did. Do you know why? Quote, a human child raised her hand. Because helping people is the right thing to do, a Velthron child added. Because we are stronger together than apart. Ji-hoon smiled. Both correct. Remember this. Your species almost died. But you did not. Because someone cared enough to help. Now, it is your turn. When you grow up, you will hear distress calls. From strangers. From people you have never met. Will you answer? Yes, the students said together. Human and Velthron voices. United. Back at the diplomatic station, the meeting concluded. The 17 species had agreed. They would create the Kethis Accords, a mutual aid treaty. Not mandatory. No species was forced to participate. But those who signed agreed to one principle. If someone called for help, someone would answer. It was not perfect. Some species refused to sign. Some thought it was wasteful, idealistic, naive. But 17 species signed. Then 20. Then 35. The galaxy was changing. One Shik signed on behalf of the Velthron people. He used a pen that Boram had given him years ago. A simple pen. Cheap. But it had belonged to her. She used it to sign medical reports during the Kethis intervention. Now it was signing a treaty that might prevent another Kethis Prime from being abandoned. After the signing, one Sheik traveled to New Velthara. To the memorial. It stood in the center of the capital. A tall monument, made of stone, from 17 human worlds. On it were carved 1,847 names. The humans who died saving the Velthrons. One Sheik stood before the memorial. He did this every year. It was a pilgrimage. A remembrance. He placed flowers at the base. Purple flowers. They grew on New Velthara now. Someone had brought seeds from Kethis Prime. Saved them during the evacuation. Now they grew here. A piece of the old world in the new. The memorial's inscription was simple. They heard strangers call and answered with their lives. The galaxy will never forget. One Shik touched the stone, felt the carved letters under his fingers. He thought about Boram, about G1, about Sung Ho, about all the humans who had come when no one else would. We did not forget, he said quietly. We will never forget. A sound interrupted his thoughts. An alarm. Captain Do-yoon had detected a distress signal. Unknown species. Outer Rim. They were in trouble. Some kind of cascading environmental failure. Toxic atmosphere. Unstable geology. Familiar problems. One Shik read the message. Then he sent a response. Acknowledged. Dispatch aid immediately. I am authorizing emergency response protocol. Contact all signatory species of the Kethis Accords. Ask for volunteers. Within an hour, 15 species had responded. They would send ships, medical teams, engineers, everything needed for a rescue operation. The human fleet was already moving. They did not wait for authorization. They just went. Because that was what you did. But this time, they were not alone. Theln ships moved with them. Corvin vessels. Dralith transports. Even species that had watched coldly 50 years ago were helping now. Because the galaxy had learned. Slowly. Painfully. Yunji, the first officer on the Unity, sent a message to the distressed species. The translation was rough. The syntax awkward. But the meaning was clear. We received your message. We are coming. Hold on. Help is coming. The same words the humans had sent 50 years ago. On New Velthara, One Shik stood before the memorial and smiled. Tears ran down his face. Not tears of sadness. Tears of pride. 50 years ago, one species had answered when everyone else stayed silent. Now, 17 species were answering together. Maybe more tomorrow. Maybe the whole galaxy someday. The rescued species would live. They would integrate with the galactic community. They would learn about the Kethis intervention. About the humans who came when no one else would. And maybe, decades from now, when they heard a distress call, they would answer too. The cycle would continue. The lesson would spread. Help those who need help. Answer those who call. Be stronger together. One Shik looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, a rescue operation was beginning. People were being saved. Lives were being preserved. Civilizations were being given a second chance. Because one species had decided that helping strangers was worth any cost. And that decision had echoed across 50 years, across the galaxy, changing everything. He touched the memorial one last time, traced the inscription with his fingers. "Thank you," he whispered, "for everything. We heard your lesson. We will carry it forward. The galaxy will remember. We will make sure of it." Above him, ships launched from New Velthara. Velthron vessels joining the rescue fleet. They carried supplies, medical equipment, engineers, volunteers, all going to help people they had never met, just like the humans had done for them. The galaxy was changing, one rescue at a time, one species at a time, one act of compassion at a time. And it all started because someone sent out a desperate message into the void, and someone answered, the humans answered, and the galaxy would never forget.